I'm just here to basically hear the presentation from the Ratepayer Advocate. And I've done a lot of these kind of hearings. And I'm kind of surprised at the 44%, to be honest about it. I thought, you know, if you look at San Jose Water Company, look at their, check their stock records, they're making a profit. They're doing pretty good. They are expected to have, they pay dividends to their shareholders. You know, it's a good company. It's making money. I received like hundreds of emails and letters from my constituents, okay? And this rate increase is a startling rate increase. It really is, given the fact that they're doing pretty good. And I've looked at those financials myself. Okay? So, given the fact that they're doing pretty good, and they're asking for a 44% increase in the water rates for our community, I'm surprised. Now, we go through a process now. So it's very important to understand the process here tonight. And then we have people that make decisions through the Public Utilities Commission. And we have contacted the San Jose Water Company and the State Division of Ratepayer Advocates to sort of understand what their position. I've asked them to explain to me, the senator representing the chairman of the committee on the budget for the Public Utilities Commission. You know, I am the guy that reviews the budget. So I'd like to have an explanation. I want to know what is going on. What is this something that's happening all over the state? Is this a major problem for our state of California, with water going up? Or is this just something that's happening here locally? And what's the reason? So I don't plan on talking about it. I'm going to listen. But I'm going to do something about it. That's the bottom line. You got that?
Thank you.
Okay, that's what I got, a message I got to send you. I'm going to listen tonight. I think it's important to hear the people. But I'm going to do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good update of some things that we're working on here, but on the crux of what you're here for, to have a discussion and and share your thoughts and feelings on the rate hike. We, Councilmember Rocha, one of my colleagues, had a town hall meeting at City Hall about a month ago. It was right before the holiday. And, a number of speakers, talked about, why everything up front, why would the rate go from where it is to 40-something%, almost immediately. That's one, there's the practical side of looking at it, there's infrastructure they have to fix, but at the same time, there's ways of paying for it without having to pay for it overnight, without getting back into, talking about pension reform and so forth. Measure B, there was a way to pay for pensions, stretching it out over time without having to, cut city resources in order to, shorten the amount of time the mayor wanted to pay for this. That's an example of, there's options. Our airport, we bonded for the airport when we built the airport. We're not paying off the bonds in 5 years. We're not paying off the bonds in 4 years. We're paying them off. I believe they're 20 or 30-year bonds. And so my point is that I would like to see the San Jose Water Company come up with a plan that would actually show that they would be willing to spread out the costs over time, You know, I'm sure it's a big company. The senator pointed out an excellent point. They're making money. It's a private company. You know, they're publicly traded. And so there has to be a way for them to be able to pay for the infrastructure improvements over time, to where, if your rates are going up, and of course rates always go up. Our groceries go up over time. They don't go up to that amount. That your rates are going up, the way that they actually should be going up with inflation and everything else, how prices rise. So that's my position. I think that 40+% from one day to the next, it's not right, it's not fair, it's going to affect our community a lot more. There's a lot of folks on fixed incomes, a lot of seniors live in District 5, a lot of young families that are just trying to make ends meet live in District 5, and for that matter live all over this valley. And we need to be able to send that message to San Jose Water Company. And I will be sending a letter officially stating my position to the water company, and in support for them being more responsible. They need to take care of business. They need to fix their infrastructure, but they've got to be more responsible in terms of how they pay for it. So the other thing that I wanted to give you an update on is, we've been working on some traffic safety. So I just saw the engineering designs and reports for the Story Road pedestrian crossing. So we are going to put a lighted crosswalk there. And so the engineers are working on that right now. The proposal is to, and we'll do some community meetings on it to get your feedback. But some of the initial proposals, as I've seen, is to bring the crosswalk more towards James Lick, more towards the baseball field. Because one, the students will probably use it more than trying to dart across.
You mean Allen Rock, not Story? You said
Why
Story.
did I say Story? Allen Rock. Yeah, Allen Rock. Yeah, right here. I don't know why I said Story. So right here on Allen Rock, lighted crosswalk. The other place that we're going to do a lighted crosswalk is on Highland. Highland, right here on White Road.
What do you mean by lighted? Something that little yellow light?
So when a pedestrian wants to cross, there will be the trigger device. And you push it, they'll flash the yellow warning lights to let the motorists know someone's getting into the crosswalk and to stop. You all know. Both of these streets are like freeways. People just zip right by them. So those are funded, and they're being engineered, right now. And as a matter of fact, the Highland one I think will come first, and I believe we're looking at May, June, when that would be. Was it May, June?
Yeah, either between May or June.
Okay, to when that's gonna happen.
On Story, where the
Right.
the Senate kids across the street there.
So we're working on that one, and here's what, Story's even more exciting because there's a lot of opportunity there. Story's gonna get paved. So Story from King Road all the way to Clayton is gonna get paved. So we were able to get that into the budget. We're looking at probably June, July, where we go out for bid. And then depending on who gets it and the contracts and so forth, we should start seeing some activity of paving Story Road somewhere in the fall. And given that there's construction work going, we are talking to them about doing some pedestrian improvements, and that's one of the areas that I've been in DOT's ear on. So that's, so we're working on those. Yeah, so thanks for the reminder, and so there's some things that are happening that you're starting to see move. Capitol Expressway. What do you think about Capitol? Isn't it nice now? Capitol is beautiful. It's never looked like that. You don't have to walk on dirt and mud anymore to get to where you need to get. It's a great pedestrian-friendly thoroughfare.
What's going to happen when the trees get bigger and cover the little cute lights?
The trees will be trimmed because they belong to the county, so the county will be responsible for trimming them. Yes, they will. Actually, yes, they will. So I just wanted to give you that update. Did you have a?
Yeah, what's the possibility of turning the water into just a municipal municipality thing where the city of San Jose runs it and not some corporation.
I'm sure San Jose Water Company would come back and say, pay us what you don't want to pay us, and we'll talk. It's a private company, and everything's for sale. You know, I don't think our city would, I don't think our city could even afford to think about, you know, doing that. But good idea. So, if there aren't any other questions, thank you, and, yes, sir.
Why, who keeps an eye on these people? The PUC is not doing their job at all. It's evidenced by what PG&E just stood up to them and told them where to go.
Well, I think the thing that you should feel comfortable about is you have I can't speak for our legislators from other parts of the state. You have local legislators that pay attention. You really do. And so they are watching, they're watching out for us. They are.
A rate of 10%. I kill for it.
Right.
You're talking about, hey, that is a rip-off.
Yeah.
Somebody, what are the actuarials? The same guys the city of San Jose hired? Oh.
Anyway, thank you very much. And
local elected officials involved in these types of things. I want to leave plenty of time for questions and answers because I know there's a lot of interest in this. So I really want to just touch upon 5 areas just really briefly. And that is one, the role of the commission, the role of my division, which is an independent division within the commission, the process of the general rate case, the actual request and some of the details about what is being currently litigated, and then also, most importantly, what everyone can do to remain involved and continue to be involved and continue to have your voices heard. So, about the commission, the California Public Utilities Commission is a 5-member commission that reviews the rate requests of investor-owned utilities as well as other applications. My division is the Division of Ratepayer Advocates. We were created by the legislature as an independent division with an independent budget. At least we're trying to have an independent budget. And our mandate is written into the code. It's very clear what we are to do. And we are to represent ratepayers and advocate for all ratepayers before the commission to obtain the lowest possible rates consistent with safe and reliable service. So in that role, what we do is, especially for water utilities, our division receives these applications. This is called a general rate case. We are on a 3-year cycle. Every 3 years, it's written into the codes. We perform an audit, and in conjunction with that audit, the utilities present what their requests are for the next 3 years. So this was filed January of 2012, and it was to set rates starting in 2013. The process has been a little bit delayed. We're still awaiting a decision. And let me step back and explain a little bit more about what our role is in terms of advocating for ratepayers. So we reviewed the application, and I think this application totaled a couple thousand different pages, plus accompanying word papers. And we have a team. My background is in finance, but we have engineers, professional engineers, we have accountants, we have economists. And for this project, we had about 5 team members that scrutinized their request. And as many people as it's already been reported, what was requested was a total increase of 44% over 3 years. I'd like to have everyone focus on also is that first year, this year, 2013, because the way rate making works is we look at what is called a test year. And so we project what will be reasonable expenses, reasonable capital investment over the cycle, and set that test year. The following years, in this case 2014 and 2015, are largely formulaic, meaning the Bureau of Labor Statistics comes out with their inflation reports, and we do some adjustments based upon reasonableness, because once again, our primary function is to assure reasonableness of the rates. But it's the test year that really is the largest impact in terms of setting what the rates will be going forward. So for 2013, the company, San Jose Water Company, had requested 21% increase in rates. Our staff reviewed the request and came up with quite a bit of a difference in what our recommendation to the commission is. Our recommendation to the commission was an increase of 0.05%. It is a big difference, and I'm prepared to talk about some of the differences. Well, all the primary differences at least. The primary driver in this case, per San Jose Water Company's own legal briefs and their own testimony, was the reduction in consumption. And so it's kind of difficult for people to understand, well, wait a second, if we're using less water, why do we have to pay more? And the majority of San Jose Water's their costs, the vast majority, are fixed costs. It's the pipes in the ground, it's the infrastructure that they put in, and those costs need to be recouped in terms of continuing to be able to provide safe and reliable service. So, when there's less gallons of water being used, it's just a facet of rate making. The fixed costs are spread over a smaller number of gallons, and therefore the price per gallon goes up. That's actually factored into our recommendation of 0.05% because it has been a decrease in consumption. The factors that have led to that are debatable. Obviously, conservation has played a role, but the economy has played a role. Our staff is very cognizant of what's happening with the economy and take that into consideration when reviewing the overall reasonableness. Getting back to the primary drivers of the rate increase. I believe the council member had mentioned the necessity for investment. It's in everyone's interest to have investment in necessary infrastructure. That is why investor-owned utilities exist. The balance and the check and balance that exists has to be, is the investment, one, necessary, called prudent in rate making, and is it a reasonable investment? Otherwise, unfettered investment is great for an investor-owned utility, but it's not great for ratepayers. They get saddled with unnecessary costs, saddled with infrastructure that isn't necessary. Our request reduced the capital project, or the total capital project budget, from a request of $297 million to $225 million. About 25% decrease. Still a sizable investment in infrastructure for San Jose. Our engineer that reviewed this, and I should also mention that our report is available online. You can go to our website, which is www.dra.ca.gov, and search for San Jose Water. I'll be available afterwards, and I can provide additional information where you might be able to get a copy of this. Our engineer who reviewed the request, in her recommendation said, Commission, focus on that safe and reliable mandate. Some of the projects that are being requested are aspirational, meaning that it would be great if you could. Everyone would want to have these bells and whistles, but are they truly necessary in today's environment, in today's economy? Are they necessary for safe and reliable service? Focus on the tanks, the main replacements, that infrastructure which can bring water safely to people. In terms of some of the other projects that are admirable in terms of their long-term goals, recycled water, which we had supported in a reduced capacity, are far and away in an advanced stage. They're ahead of schedule, in some cases 10 to 15 years ahead of schedule.
Would you repeat that, please? What's ahead of schedule?
Some of the projects that have been requested are ahead of schedule in terms of meeting either, the state has a requirement that by 2020, urban water retailers will have reduced consumption by 20%. You know, we can debate the projections and the calculus that went into it, but that's actually the law. That was a Senate bill that was passed it's the law. So by 2020, there's going to be a statewide reduction, a goal of 20% reduction. We're in 2013, and if you look at the consumption in San Jose Water Company, they're just about there. So at least 7 years ahead of schedule in terms of meeting that goal. Combined with the request, in their words, to ramp up conservation with additional spending, in some cases over $1 million, some of the projects may be admirable in their long term, but are they really necessary now? Is it what is reasonable to be borne by the ratepayers? And do the costs outweigh the benefits? So that handles one of the primary differences would be the emphasis or the amount of money that would be focused on capital projects. I don't want anyone to think that our recommendations are jeopardizing the safety and reliability of water service. $225 million in capital investment is a sizable investment. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I don't want to throw you off your theme. This question is out of curiosity. I don't know if I would have access to that information. First of all, how well is this company run as compared to other districts? What is the comparison with similar sized districts? Also, there's one thing that always comes up, the board of directors. You hear this guy was in the board of directors, that guy. It's a landing spot for people who've been turned out of here or there or everywhere. And what is their compensation? Do they have 50 guys in the board of directors where they only need maybe 4 or 5?
I'm going to get to those points, and that actually,
I'm wondering if we could save questions until the end.
Sure.
I think we all really want to hear the presentation as well as ask questions.
I thought you could incorporate that into.
Okay.
I will definitely do that. If I am and haven't, please remind me, but it should be part of this. So, capital budgets. Forecasted expenses. What has been requested by the company is a budget of approximately $160 million a year. Our review of what was necessary, reasonable, and prudent reduced that by about 10%. Now that included O&M costs, and I don't want to get too into the weeds and the nitty-gritty with esoteric rate making about purchased water and how we factor that in, but needless to say, there was about a 10% reduction in what we found compared to what had been requested. Some of that did relate to administrative and general expenses, payroll and salaries. What had been requested was an increase for their executive board or executive officers and senior management that was approximately double the increase that had been negotiated with their local union for the general staff. So we had made that adjustment. So that's a little bit, I think, getting into what your question was in terms of requested payroll increases. Also part of that is a request for additional staffing. There was a significant request in additional staff in 23 additional positions. Our analysis came up with need for three new positions. And partly that was related, I think someone had mentioned the ability of San Jose Municipal to take over San Jose Water. And this also is going to come back to your issue about board of directors as well. San Jose Water Company is one part of a corporate parent that has unregulated operations. And those unregulated operations include contract services with either cities, and there is a win-win with the regulated San Jose Water Company being able to use excess capacity, and the commission recently concluded an entire proceeding on this issue. Use excess capacity for the mutual benefit of everyone. By that I mean, if San Jose Water Company, just through the course of, fewer customers coming onto the system, or it's chunky investment, you might have to put in a pipe now that really could serve additional people, or have an asset in place that really has excess capacity. Unregulated operations, and this also applies to staff too. Unregulated operations can borrow that asset, borrow a percentage of that person's time, use it in the contracted services with the city of San Jose or Cupertino, providing good service to them. And the revenue associated with that is split, meaning half of it goes to the parent company and half of it is used to offset the cost that the regulated customers, the ratepayers would normally bear on their own for underutilized assets. What we found was that of the 23 requested new positions, at least a handful of those were identified as positions currently being used for unregulated operations. So obviously it raises a concern if there is excess capacity to provide unregulated operations, and at the same time saying, we don't have enough people, these people, for our regulated, we want some more. We want all these customers here to pay for it, and we'll use them as we see fit.
Plus half the cost would be
There is a revenue sharing, yes.
But half the cost is still borne by me, the ratepayer.
Actually,
The unregulated cost is going to have to go. A time, the unregulated time went out the door, I'm only getting paid back half the cost.
in this case, it would be, yes. Well,
I just want to be clear on that, I want to be clear.
in this case, I'm sorry, it's 100% of the
Oh,
cost.
all right.
You'd be bearing 100% of the cost. So
I'm bearing 100%.
For those positions.
for those positions.
Okay.
So that's part of the review process we have. I just mentioned that the commission had a proceeding to address this because it's an issue for all of our investor-owned utilities, not just San Jose Water Company. So gone through our capital budget, we've gone through administrative expenses. A good portion of our recommendations really involve very technical rate-making issues associated with how retired plant is allocated or forecast, how working capital is projected, how depreciation and the depreciation reserve, and that's all in this report, contributed to that difference in between 20% and close to zero. There were some policy issues. Now, I want to leave time for some other, well, as many questions as we can get in. You might hear about decoupling. So decoupling is something that's been in place for the energy utilities, PG&E, Edison, San Diego Gas and Electric, for it's probably 10, 15 years. It's relatively new to the water industry. For someone with a background in finance, it's mind-boggling because the premise of decoupling is that you separate, decouple, sever the link between sales and revenues. Now, once again, there's an admirable goal and intention behind this, and that's to prevent utilities which have a natural incentive, PG&E has a natural incentive to sell you more electricity. San Jose Water Company has a financial incentive to sell you more water. The intention of decoupling, by separating out the sales and the revenue, was that incentive would be reduced so that state goals for conservation of energy and conservation of water could proceed without undue interference by the utilities trying to circumvent those goals and promote energy use or water. San Jose Water is the only investor-owned, publicly traded water utility in California that doesn't have this. California Water, which has service areas close to here. American States, otherwise known as Golden State Water, which has service territories throughout the state. And, American Water, the largest water utility in the United States. All three of those have decoupling mechanisms. They're under a commission pilot project, and the results of that pilot project are not final. However, the preliminary results are not good, at least in terms of the financial impact. Once again, all of the factors that are causing these increases in rates aren't exactly understood, but needless to say, some districts are experiencing rate increases associated with decoupling of upwards of 30–35%. And there's not a lot we can do about this because these are passed through, other than review the mechanism and do something to change that mechanism. Some of that is underway. These results for water utilities are very different from what the Commission has experienced for energy utilities. Partly because PG&E has a very large customer base that can absorb, so when there's impacts here in terms of consumption, they may be offset here. With water utilities, we don't have that leveraging effect, and we've seen some very problematic results with the companies that have these pilot projects, the water utilities. San Jose Water Company is requesting this in the current proceeding. We have testimony saying basically two things. The intention of these is to promote conservation. San Jose Water is close to reducing 20% total consumption or total demand from their historical average. One. Two, they have a different rate adjustment mechanism that was the precursor to full decoupling. It may not have functioned as financially beneficial for the company, but it has been a little bit better, and I'm talking historically, a little bit better sharing of the risk and the pain associated with lower demand, higher rates. With full decoupling, when consumption goes down, people use less, it doesn't matter. The difference between what they would have earned if they had sold that amount, the same amount of water, comes back as a surcharge in the next year. Once again, it's been in place for energy utilities. It's worked. It's very controversial within the regulatory field. Water utilities, there's only a few states, jurisdictions that have this mechanism fully adopted. We have it as a pilot project for 3 of our utilities. Energy, it's a little bit more accepted. We are recommending that the Commission, at this time, not adopt this mechanism. The final policy issue that you might see and have questions about if you look at our report are these requests for memorandum accounts. There's a good reason why rate making is done on a prospective basis. We look and we set budgets, what are reasonable and prudent budgets likely to be actually incurred over the following years. It would be in no one's interest, neither utility or the customer, for the Commission to have the power to go back in time. I think in England they refer to it as clawback, and claw back either rates that we now deem were not reasonable and say, utility, you have to refund those, because it's a two-way street. It can work against repair. So everything is done prospectively, except when memorandum accounts are authorized. And memorandum accounts are a special rate-making mechanism that developed in the 1970s. Unfortunately, a lot of what we do has legacy effects. And for those who remember the 70s and the oil embargo, our energy utilities were experiencing drastic and dramatic increases in their fuel costs, almost on a daily basis, that they couldn't keep up. Those were real costs. They didn't have much leverage to do anything about it, and they wanted to continue providing safe service. So the commission said, okay, the difference in what we have projected and what you are actually incurring, you can record as a memorandum in these accounts. Later on, you can come back and show us that they were prudent and reasonable and you had to incur them, and we'll allow recovery of that. Once again, admirable goal to get over a temporary crisis. Unfortunately, these memorandum accounts, these balancing accounts have persisted. And they have gone on to be used from everything for increased water regulations. There might be a new water regulation. We'd like a memorandum account to track any additional costs we might incur. There might be additional healthcare costs. We're not going to even bother trying to forecast or negotiate what those healthcare costs are with our healthcare providers. We just would like a memorandum account. They've proliferated. So much that what has been requested here of 44, we see the 44% increase. The proliferation of these memorandum and balancing accounts throughout California's investor-owned utilities have resulted in increases in rates, sometimes twice what is originally identified in the general rate case. For energy utilities, that's the standard. I'm finishing testimony on another company, another water proceeding, and I'm shocked to see that what the commission had identified and authorized as general rates for the 3-year period was actually 1/2 of what the general rates wound up being, largely because of these memorandum balancing accounts, this ability to record and track costs that at one time served a purpose, probably still can serve a purpose, needs to be curtailed, and I guess when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Well, San Jose Water has requested authorization for a couple more of these memorandum accounts. We have opposed that. We are at the point where the evidentiary record is closed. I understand a lot of people were surprised to learn about this. We did have a public participation hearing May 21st of last year. It was noticed in the really small, detailed, fine print that comes with your bill. That's something our public advisor's office is looking at in terms of how that notice is provided. It did meet all the requirements, but fortunately, because of the involvement of public officials in taking up interest in this issue, it has garnered additional interest in the media amongst the elected officials, and we hope that that continues, because we are in the process right now. Although the evidentiary record's closed, the commission is still receiving comments. We do not have a proposed decision. So the process from this point forward is the assigned administrative law judge on this case will review the testimony, will review the evidentiary record. We were all cross-examined under oath, their witnesses, our witnesses. I think this was the first litigated proceeding in 10 years for San Jose Water Company. They had largely become accustomed to, there's always a request and there's always a review. And often it is in everyone's interest to have a settlement to avoid additional litigation costs which customers would bear, especially if the advocate, our group, can say, okay, we missed that point, well, we didn't consider that, that's reasonable, well, thank you, and you achieve a negotiated settlement. Mutually beneficial negotiated settlement. Because remember, once again, our mandate is very clear in terms of what we are to do. In this case, we weren't able to do that. This is the first time in quite a while that that's happened. It's a little bit of a different process going forward, at least for San Jose Water Company. I spend a lot of time in court. I spend a lot of time testifying, defending customers, so I'm a little bit more accustomed to it. We are waiting for the proposed decision. When that is released, there's a 30-day comment period. I encourage everyone here, this is the part of what can be done now. to send letters to the commission. The commission has a public advisor's office. They're a central repository. They gather that information. Once a proposed, oh, one other thing. There's been a lot of positive response and interest generated through editors, contacts to the media. I would encourage folks, because we at the commission, our division, we get copied on those news clips. And if there's one thing that I know the 5 commissioners that ultimately are going to decide this case read, it's that summary. They can click on to see the actual article that's written. But anytime the words commission are mentioned with rates in the same sentence, that's something that gets sent throughout the commission, and I know the commissioners read that. So contacts to the media, your elected officials, contacts directly to the commission. Once a proposed decision is issued, there is a 30-day comment period. Official comments are filed by the parties. My division, we are a party to this proceeding. We're kind of outside the commission at this point. We have limited, there's rules governing the communications we can have, even with people that we're riding on the elevator with, because they are in a different role as decision makers. We are in a litigated proceeding. Once the proposed decision comes out, we will review that. We will file our comments on that proposed decision. There may be an alternate. There's 5 commissioners. At least recently, there's been quite a lot of use of that vehicle, so that one commissioner, one judge may view the policy issues and some of the underlying policy issues affecting rates one way, and a different commissioner may have a very different perspective. We have a process that allows them to introduce an alternate. Ultimately, at the end of the day, there's 3 votes. The majority of the commission has to approve whatever is the final decision authorizing rates. And that, when that is done, it will appear on the commission's agenda. Commission usually has business meetings, I think, every other Thursday. If you go to our website, you'll see the calendar. Unfortunately, they are in San Francisco. We've had a few meetings down here. The beginning of each commission meeting is open to comments from the public on any item that is on that business meeting agenda. So if you're not already subscribed to this proceeding, you can go on the successful re-examination of the commission's decision. Hopefully we won't have to be there. I'm very optimistic given the research and the evidence that was presented in our report that we're not looking at the commission would not be authorizing that increase. We know what the goalposts are. We know what the bookends are. We've got us at 0, them at 44, and how far, where it's going to fall. Is where it falls. I'm good. You go for that. Yes, sir.
Well, you said we know what the goalposts are. Historically, who's the commission missing?
You know, one of their members is here today.
The state senate, we have to approve the governor.
Well, I guess what I was wondering is, are we complaining about a losing battle, or does the commission actually pay attention to our advocates? And we're likely to get some relief from that.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question I have is, we know what the goalposts are, 44% and 0, but historically, who does the commission listen to?
Right.
That's a big lot of increases lately.
It really varies from case to case. I mean, every proceeding is supposed to be decided on the merits of that proceeding. It's,
Yeah, I mean, do you keep statistics on what your win-loss record is?
There's 45 people in our group, water division, and last year that resulted in reductions of $3 million per person. So $3 million per staff, of our staff. and what had been requested versus what we were able to achieve in either settlements or proceedings, litigation proceedings. So pretty good return on investment.
Looks like Senator Bill, you need to give him a little more money over there. So
Yes, ma'am.
So you mentioned two decision points at least, the administrative law judge and the vote of the CPUC.
Correct.
So are these independent in time, or does the administrative law judge have to say, or does that entity have to say, go forward?
Yes.
And so it's first the administrative law judge,
Yes.
and then it goes to the CPUC.
Correct.
And under what jurisdiction is the administrative law? Is it state or federal, or what is
State.
it? State, okay. Thanks.
Is it the same judge reviewing all these order cases?
No.
Is it just random? I mean, me, judge one day, her next day, goes around and I never see another water case in my life. Because this seems to be a lot, I gotta understand.
Yeah, their assignment of judges is a process that probably is susceptible to a lot of different factors, or influenced by a lot of different factors. I know a couple judges whose husbands are, in energy, and they're barred, they're conflicted out. So there's conflicts.
But the judge is not necessarily an expert on water or utilities.
Well, we're kind of lucky, because this judge is.
Who is the judge?
Shawnee Wilson. She's an expert on accounting, finance, and water. So we're very fortunate. I'm very optimistic. Yes?
So I have one thing I want to point out, and then I'll get to my question, is that I think that a difference is that now there's a lot more awareness that this rate increase could happen and that we could help shape the outcome, that your feedback will help. And I think
Yes.
Richard noted in the beginning that, hey, somewhere in your bill, there was a little flyer in integrity print. They noted it, but I think it was under the radar for at least a year, and now it's surfaced. And then my question is, and I think I know the answer, but I just want to make sure. So about how much in tens of millions would this 44% rate increase remove from the local economy here if it were approved instead of your 10%? Just a ballpark number would be great.
It's difficult to say, because there are positive impacts as well. So to get that net, what that net would be, that would be a calculation that we would take a couple days to do.
Oh.
It's a good calculation. The money that's being discussed here is about $44 million.
So about 44 million would be removed from our local economy.
I would
Go
say
to
that
Texas.
$44 million is the difference between
Okay.
what has been requested in rate increases and what we're advocating for.
All right, thank you.
Real quick question. Just curious, if the water company does not get their 44% rate increase and you guys go the other way and say, okay, we'll give you guys 12%. Now, what are the rules of them saying next year they put a regulation on your water saying, oh, we're in a water crisis now, we're restricted to a certain amount of water use, or we're gonna charge you like PG&E does, once you go over a certain amount, we're gonna double your rate. What is that?
I guess that would be addressed on, as it happens. They had mandatory restrictions placed on water consumption at one point that had nothing to do with rates. So ultimately, at the end of the day, we review everything on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, so you guys, they have to come before you guys first. Okay.
Correct. So, thank you, everyone, for your time.
And I wanted to let you know that thanks to Alum Rock School District support, we passed a new bond by almost 80%. And so, thank you everybody. But we do need citizen support to be on the bond oversight committee, and we're looking for applications. We had a lot of great citizen participation before. I have some applications tonight in both English and Spanish if anybody wants to be involved. Again, this is about citizen participation to oversee bonds, and after I think tonight's presentation, we understand how important it is for citizens to be aware about how the taxpayers' money is being spent. So look on our website, the Alum Rock website, under Measure G. Even though Measure J passed, we still need folks involved in Measure G. It's very confusing, but again, I've got paper applications here tonight, or it's online. Thank you.